take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hi, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bush.
And I'm Bruce Dean Henry.
Please check out our website at truthertalk.com. You can find our archive shows, our essays. Like us on Facebook, Twitter. You can find links to all of that. And, yeah. So, anyway, how you doing, Verstine?
I am okay. I have a bit,
Good.
yeah, I'm okay. I would like to be like, great! But, you know, it can't be great every show. So sometimes you show up to the show with a little bit of a headache, but you'll survive. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's, you know, sometimes when we're working these Sundays, I'm okay in the start, and then I was telling you earlier, like, my headset gives me a headache.
Oh.
I don't mean to make you guys feel bad. It's just, it's the sacrifice.
Feel bad for us today. Oh, no.
It's a sacrifice I need because I love
you know what you need, April? You need some good old-fashioned pharmaceutical manufactured aspirin. That'll help.
That sounds great. I can't wait. You know? What do you take for headaches when you don't take aspirin or ibuprofen?
The ganja.
Well, but I
have a license. I'm in California.
Yeah. I'm actually pregnant though. I'm expecting. I don't. So I'm.
Oh, you can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to take at this point if I get a headache.
Chocolate? Can you do chocolate?
I guess I can have chocolate.
Raw cacao is good for you. It has a lot of antioxidants. Try that.
What's it called?
Raw cacao, nibs. Raw cacao nibs.
Oh, cacao. Yeah. Raw cacao nibs. Okay, fabulous. All right, I'll try that because I do think you're right that there's supposed to be some kind of. There's an element in caffeine. I know you're not supposed to have a lot of caffeine when you're pregnant, but that's actually part of what aspirin is made out of, is caffeine. And so caffeine in and of itself can actually help headaches. And I know this to be true because I'm a coffee drinker. And sometimes, you know, a little bit of coffee can heal a headache. But, you know, like I said, you're pregnant, you're also not supposed to have a lot of caffeine. You can have a little, but just not a whole lot, so.
Oh, you know what? Let me see.
But I don't know. I mean,
actually, I'm reading. I just think chocolate gives me relief. Sorry, I don't want to like mislead our listeners, but I'm looking it up right now, and it says cacao nibs are associated with a headache. So maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. I haven't really researched it enough. I just know that if I eat chocolate, it helps me, and now I'm trying to get away from processed chocolate, so I'm thinking about. I do eat raw cacao nibs. It's never given me a headache.
Yeah.
But I'm reading here, it says it could give you a headache. So I don't know.
Well, chat room. Maybe I won't have a headache next Sunday or when you are listening to this show, but I am I have a tiny bit of one now, just because I've been wearing these headsets for too long.
Okay.
But anyway, if anyone wants to chime in, we'd love to hear it. I like the chat room. We've been doing this show for over a year and a half or so, and we never had a chat room before until we joined this network. It's kind of a different experience. You could write to us, like when we were on Blog Talk Radio. That was our first channel that we went through, and there was a place that people could make comments, but people rarely did. Most people listened to it in archive; they didn't listen to it live.
Yeah.
But this network, a lot of people listen to it live, so they chat and they comment while they're doing it, which is really kind of cool. So I kind of like that. And then in the future, if we ever do live shows, you can actually have callers. People call in and talk to you live. It just kind of sounds like fun. So
That would be fun.
I'm trying to think if I've ever done.
Our schedule's just kind of awry right now, so we can't get it together right now to have a live show. But maybe in the future, that would be great.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that in the future, just because it sounds like fun. I like kind of mixing it up with people, and then they throw you off and they ask you a bunch of questions and things. I feel like I'm trying to remember if I've done live shows. I've done live shows before on other people's networks. I've done Bob Tuskin. He always does it live, and our friend Liam Sheff, who has a show, and I've done his thing live a couple times. He does it both ways, or when he's a co-host of the Robert Scott Bell Show, and they do both. They do live and recording, and I did recording on that show, and then we did live on the Energy Show. And I want to say that people would chat, but I never had a caller, never had anyone call in. But people would chat and make comments and stuff like that. But this is a new experience on UCY TV, and I like it. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
People just kind of they're listening, and they're talking to you and about the things that you're talking about on the show. Or they're just sometimes they just start talking and you get into a whole conversation and it just goes off into another tangent. So I'm glad that people are chatting and talking about the show. It's really exciting for I love the instant feedback.
Oh, definitely.
That you get. It's really cool. So that's where I'm saying, if you're listening, give us natural remedies for headaches. I bet you people know.
Well, I found something like rosemary and thyme oil massage in the head, magnesium tablets. Anybody else have any other yeah, I bet you some kind of aromatherapy. Probably sniffing lavender. Now, I know that, as far as I know, that won't cause any side effects. So just smelling lavender might help because it relaxes you anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So, or you can just take off your headset when you're.
That's true. When I'm done, I'll take off my headset. It will probably go away on its own. But yeah, we use the essential oils at home for a lot of things. Lavender. For sleep time, for when people are trying to relax, or in the bathtub, you put some essential oils in the tub. The sandalwood is it's more for comforting, and some of these scents can kind of spark that feeling. It's amazing how we talk about these things, and it's like they will all tell you, the pharmaceutical funding, they will all tell you that, that stuff's not evidence-based. But it's so obvious, isn't it? Like, if you have a certain scent, and or if you hear a certain type of music, it's like all these things they give you a certain feeling, they spark a certain emotion or something, and then you feel it instantly. It's like, it's your senses that when we did a show before about the trivium, it's like you can trust your five senses, and I think they try to tell you that you can't, Well, you can't trust your emotions from hearing music. You can't trust your sense of smell, Yeah.
Well, I think that the people that just aren't in touch with those emotions, too, or they're just shut off. They're not in touch with their feelings or their emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, for you, it's obvious because we're in touch with that stuff, but it's so funny, too, with some people, not all people, but some people that I've encountered that are into the trivium, they say, they use their five senses, but when it comes to stuff like that, they want to see an article or a study or something to prove you right. Instead of just trying it for themselves. And can't you trust your senses? Isn't that what you're, you're about? Yeah,
and it's about. Right, and it's like, is it going to hurt you? Is it going to hurt you to smell some lavender? It's a flower.
Yeah, it's
pick it up and smell it.
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's not like it's going to attack you or jump up your nose and shoot knives into you or something like that. I mean, it just really perplexes me that, people don't want to do little things and just take risks. Risks for things that aren't going to even hurt them. There's not going to be any loss, I lost a friend a couple years ago. We got into it because she had cancer, and her boyfriend was mad because I sent her references talking about cancer and juices curing cancer. Now, is it going to really cure her to go on a juice fast for a week? It's not the worst thing she could do to her body, but obviously it's too much for some people.
Well, I mean, you know, we've talked before about how the Nobel Peace Prize is full of crap, but wasn't it a guy who won a Nobel Peace Prize who actually proved that cancer cannot survive in an alkaline environment? I can't forget that. I'm forgetting the name of the scientist, but he proved that cancer couldn't survive in an alkaline environment, and that, you know, all it took was, which basically Max Gerson had figured out years before, that, you know, and that's what the whole juicing was about, is that because your body would be too acidic. And it takes a simple pH test that you can get. I swear to God, they're so cheap. They're like $5. You pee on a stick, and it tells you what your pH balance is. And if you're too acidic, well then, okay, you alkalize it a little bit. That's what Alka-Seltzer is. Like, you know, the Alka-Seltzer drink. It's like, it's about 75% baking soda. And then they put in a little bit of caffeine. They put in a little bit of aspirin to reduce the inflammation. Mm-hmm. I don't know all that they use to do it. But it's not incredibly harmful as far as the things out there on the market are, and that's what it does. That's why it relieves your stomach ache, because it takes away the acid, and it's a baking soda base, right? Mm-hmm. So that it alkalizes. That's why it's called Alka-Seltzer, because it alkalizes your pH. And so, but you can do this. Save your money, folks. I'm not telling people to go and buy Alka-Seltzer. I'm just saying that's where the name comes from. But you can also do the same thing with a teaspoon of baking soda in your water, in a cup of water, you know. And unlike, there was a urban legend going around that said that baking soda had aluminum in it, but it doesn't, because if you add aluminum to sodium bicarbonate, that actually becomes a different chemical. So it's not in what people were getting confused about is that aluminum can be found in baking powder. Yeah, but
and baking powder is nasty.
Well, baking powder. I mean, how do you know? You can taste it?
Yeah, I can. Well, I've tasted. I accidentally ate baking powder instead of baking soda before.
But you're not supposed to put it in. You're not supposed to taste it, because you usually use like a quarter of a teaspoon in a.
I know. As a kid, I was out of baking soda and we had baking powder, because I used baking soda to brush my teeth a lot.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'd use baking powder. It's fucking nasty. It was awful.
Right, because I was going to say, like, how would you know that? Because when I put it in, like, to bake a cake or something, it's such a minute amount.
Yeah.
You don't usually.
No, yeah, I ate it raw. I ate it after. I was like, well, it looks the same. It has the word baking in it, so it must be the same thing. Not.
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple of baking powders on the market that don't contain aluminum, but so you can.
Why do you put aluminum in baking powder? What is there any justification for that? Or is it just like made in a factory that aluminum accidentally falls in, or is another way of them trying to dumb us down? Like, what is it?
No doubt, right? I have no idea. I mean, you'd have to ask the people who make it. I mean, maybe it's a preservative. Maybe it helps keep it fresh longer. I don't know. I can't say.
But it's powder. It doesn't.
No, yeah, right? It doesn't go bad.
Yeah, it's like, I don't. Oh my God! We just have to grow everything. I'm like, baking powder? No, not baking powder. It's fucking fluoride in the toothpaste. What do you do?
Yeah, it's true.
Oh God.
It's really funny, but baking soda doesn't have it. Was my point. So, but there is a difference between like Arm & Hammer and what's the other one? Bob's Red Mill. Arm & Hammer, because one is Bob's gets it from a natural source, whereas the Arm & Hammer is synthetic, but it doesn't have aluminum in it. So just to put that out there. Because I know some people are on a budget. And Bob's is, so I like baking soda, you know, I'd say if you can get the natural source, then that's great. But if you can't, you know, it doesn't have aluminum in it. But I like it because it's cheap, and a lot of stuff is really cheap. Like if you go look at cures, speaking of cancer, we're still talking about castor oil. Go ahead.
Hold on, the guy's name, just so you know, is Warburg, that discovered cancer can't live in an alkaline environment. Otto Hendrich Warburg.
Right. So when these people tell you that things aren't that it's not evidence-based, but
it's because they don't read. It's because they're fucking illiterate. That's why.
Jesus Christ! It's like but it's so bizarre. You know, how did they not figure? I mean, it's like you have research on the other side of it, too. And then that is evidence-based, I mean, how many people have cured themselves using Gerson therapy? It's like, and Gerson therapy is a combination of eating a specific diet that alkalizes the body, and then also doing coffee enemas. And so you clean yourself out, you eat a diet, that alkalizes your system, and then they take castor oil, which is also cleansing, and then that's it, and it's pretty effective from what I've seen. I mean, I haven't done it myself, but it seems to be pretty effective. And then, so Max Gerson figured that out long ago, and then this guy figured it out, and he won a Nobel Prize for it. And then, but there are people who still tell you it's quack science.
Because they're fucking quacks.
No, it's using their same logic. It's like their logic is that, well, this isn't evidence-based. Or this guy, we've got, Jonas Salk won a Nobel Prize. Well, so did this guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's your saying. I mean, and you say, oh, but he's a quack, but Jonas Salk's,
Well, they call him a quack because it doesn't support their theory. So anything that doesn't support your theory is non-evidence-based, anecdotal, quack science, or pseudoscience. Those are the only 4 words that they use to defend themselves, because they want to be right. They're not interested in finding a cure. They're interested in being right and being smarter than you. That's what they're interested in.
Oh, it's so pathetic.
Yeah, it is
really
pathetic.
I mean,
but there are people that will die. There are people that will go and die because they,
right,
literally die.
Right, and they'll admit the follies or how bad some of these pharmaceuticals make people feel, and but then they just really think that that's the best that there is out there, and then won't even smell a lavender flower because it's not evidence based. Well, I'm not going to try some essential oils even though I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm rather going to take this Ambient, which makes me get up in the middle of the night and eat my whole kitchen out and go drive. Did you hear about these people that were on Ambient?
Yeah, this is before Heath Ledger died, because didn't they say that's one of the things that he mixed something with was Ambien? But I know they would, but the people would go to the refrigerator and just eat in the middle of the night. It would cause them to douche it, and they didn't even remember the next day. They wake up and like, oh my god, my cake is gone.
Oh my god, people were having sex. They were getting in their car and driving away. They were doing all kinds of crazy shit on Ambient,
Yeah.
And this is a sleeping pill, and so.
But damn, it does make you sleep. Shit. It didn't show the promise. It didn't say it doesn't make you sleepwalk. It doesn't say it doesn't make you drive. It doesn't make the promise that you'll stay asleep in bed, but you're asleep.
Oh my god. But how good is that? Is that sleep? I mean, do you really feel refreshed in the morning after you've been out in the car and
out in the car running over old ladies?
It's so scary. It's so scary.
I know.
Somebody who's sleeping is driving their car because they're out on a fucking Ambient. It's so. But they'll do that before they take essential oils, or before they take lavender. Just try it, just smell it, just put it in a diffuser and burn it. In a candle. It's just get it great.
You know what I also think part of it is? I think part of it is that if they were to do something like that, then they become one of those crazy, weird people, right? Mm-hmm. And they know how they treat people like that, and they don't want to be treated like that by their friends and their family because they know that they've been assholes to people like that too. That's another one of my theories, that I feel that people, their pride is too strong, or they may even know or heard or come across this information before, and they might even think that it's possible or real to be able to cure, horrible diseases with simple cures, but, they're afraid of being ridiculed by their friends and family. And I think especially people have a hard time dealing with it if they're assholes, they've been like that to somebody else. But they know it's going to come back to them, and they can't handle it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like they're just so insecure. They're afraid of going outside of their bubble or whatever it is because they're afraid of being ridiculed or being different and thinking differently. It's like, I don't know, but I mean that's fine. If they don't want to do it, they would rather take the Ambient. That's great, but please don't get in your car. If you're driving around, or me and my kids go walking
strap
in the
yourself
street.
to the bed before you know.
Yeah, tie yourself up or do whatever it is you got to do, But, I mean, for me, I'd rather take, some lavender oil. I'd rather do that, and just because I put that on my kids' wrist or put it on their pillow and stuff like that. And it does help. It seems to calm it. They like it. They want it. My son Aiden, who...
And it's cheap! Sorry.
It's cheap and it smells good.
You can grow it yourself.
You can grow. We have a lavender plant outside, and on our patio.
You love it. It's win-win.
It's a win-win, and it's beautiful. It's aesthetic. It's purple. It's pretty, and also jasmine. I was reading somewhere that there were 3 types of scented flowers that were tested for their ability to help you fall asleep, and jasmine was number 1, gardenias were number 2, and lavender was number 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually lavender's down the list, but but it still works really great, and I think a jasmine plant for the bedroom is a really nice idea. But anyway, so we got off on this tangent because we're looking for natural remedies for headaches. So audience, chime in, please. Chat room, give us ideas on that, because that would be really cool. And we're going to go ahead and take a short break, but we're going to be talking to Clint Richardson in the next segment. We had him on a few weeks ago, and he's really interesting. He's very well researched. He knows a lot of stuff, and he's got you can find most of his work at thecorporationnation.com, and if you read his essays and stuff, he's a really good writer, and we just really liked his stuff a lot, but we weren't able to get to everything because he knows so much, and we had so many questions we want to ask him. So we brought him back, and he's a good interview. So we brought him back, and after this short break, we're going to be talking to Clint Richardson. So please stay tuned.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthertees.com. I gotta think of the middle 8. Shop.truthertees.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthertees.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
Hi, welcome back to Truth or Talk. For today's show, we're bringing back Clint Richardson. Clint was on our show a few weeks ago, and we weren't able to get to all the questions we wanted to ask him, so we're bringing him back today. And in case you didn't hear that show, let me just tell you briefly who Clint is. He's a writer, independent researcher, radio talk show host, documentary filmmaker, and public speaker. His works, essays, show links, and more can be found at realityblogger.wordpress.com. That's blogger with 1 G. And thecorporationnation.com. Please welcome to the show, Clint Richardson. Hey, Clint.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Clint. How are you? Good. Good to have you on.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you here. So, Clint, we really enjoyed talking to you the last time we had you on, and the hour just went by so quickly. We wanted to bring you back, and one of the things that we didn't get to ask you on the last show, we wanted to ask you about is your research on marriage or legal marriage. So, can you describe to our audience what that is? Like, what does it mean to be legally married in this country?
Well, now people aren't going to like to hear the answer to that question because, yeah, as you guys know, the truth isn't always very pleasant.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to consider that you need a license to get married. Now we have to remember what a license is. What is a license? Now, you have 2 different forms of law that sort of are diametrically opposed to each other, and one is called the natural law, or more eloquently, God's law, which is simply basically the do no harm, live in what's called equity as opposed to equality. Equity basically just means to subscribe to and be subject only to the natural law. Which basically means you don't need government, because you're not harming anybody, so there's really no problems. Inversely, we go into political law, which is everything under the Constitution, under the United States, and under your state. These are all statutory or political laws, which, no matter how you cut it, a political law is always going to be against a natural law, even if that political law is protecting the natural law. So when we, let's say, like, when I say you need a license to get married, what does that mean? Well, is marriage illegal?
No.
Well,
Believe
yeah.
in some cases, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, you can't marry a child, you can't marry a goat.
Well, yeah. See, so what does it mean to be forced to get a license? What is a license? That's the first question. Well, a license is permission from the state or government in general to do something that is unlawful or illegal. Okay? So you have to ask yourself again, is marriage, first of all, is marriage a natural act? Well, technically it is. So technically it has nothing to do with the state. So what we have, unfortunately, is permission to contract, because that's what marriage actually is. So if we go to the courts, and we read what the court's opinion is, and of course, if you go to a legal dictionary, if you go to, Black's Law, Bouvier's, Webster's 1828, all my favorite, not necessarily in that order, you'll find the definition of marriage. In the courts, when they're deciding on what is marriage, they say marriage is a civil contract to which there are three parties, the husband, the wife, and the state. And you're like, oh, I didn't know I was marrying the state, right? I mean, I didn't know I was putting on two rings, one for the state, an invisible one that can't be touched, taste, or feel because it's legal. It's just a piece of paper. It's a contract. So unfortunately, in our modern society, that's what marriage is. It's a civil contract to which you are giving up the majority of your rights, as opposed to just a natural marriage in a church or the setting of your choosing. See, what's happened is the churches have all become corporate. Now, if you're corporate, if you're a corporation, that means you're under the state. This is why when you go to a church and you say, "Can you marry us?" without permission from the state or a marriage license, right? Permission to get married, which, hey, we live in a free country, but yet we need permission to get married. Right. Well, when you go to a church, and unfortunately it's a corporation of the state. Well, this means that when your child is baptized, he's being baptized by the state, not by God or through the natural law. It's literally a state function at that point. It's recorded, actually, in the state. So, likewise, marriage is no longer just a natural or beautiful commitment. Okay? In other words, an unwritten law that you're going to be faithful and take care of each other until the day you die. Now it's actually a contractual obligation. So you've just taken it from the natural realm, and through the license and the certificate, you've created a literal contract. That's all that marriage is in the civil realm, in the civil law. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with anything, with love, with any emotional state whatsoever. Marriage is simply a legal contract, nothing else.
I read your article entitled "Do You Own Your Children?" And to some people, that might sound like a silly question, but I found it very interesting, and I wanted to know what prompted you to write this article, and why isn't it such a silly question to ask?
Well, my co-host on our Republic Broadcasting, he's with me every Thursday. Actually, one day just happened to mention this one court case. I can't remember. It was a really, really horrible writing, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God. So I just started looking for all the court cases that I could find that had to do with marriage and what marriage is. And what I came up with was just absolutely shocking, because remember, we get confused at the words that we use every day when we say, it's the opinion of the court. See, the problem is your opinion doesn't matter. When it comes to legal stuff and legalese, public opinion literally means court opinion or case law, basically. Common law, if you will. So common law has been basically taken over by what we refer to as the law merchant. It's been basically corporatized, if you will. So when I say that, I'm not telling you my opinion here. I'm saying that the court makes public opinion. We don't. The people have nothing to do with public opinion. It's literally a term that refers to what the court decides in public law. So, when we read such cases as, it's Illinois Appellate Court judgment from 1997. We can read when two people decide to get married, they are first required to procure a license from the state. And this is because the state is issuing you the contract between itself and you two. If you have children of this marriage, they are then required by the state under contract to submit their children to certain things. Because remember, the state is the number one position. In other words, it's in charge of the marriage. You are participating under contract. Your children are the product. Literally, product. When we say the word product, don't think in terms of natural law. Think in terms of a business in commerce. Your child is a piece of commerce called a product of the marriage being a corporation. You're literally forming a corporation, and the product of that corporation belongs, in the court's opinion, to the state.
It's like
all right?
a weird kind of menage a trois. Yeah, it is. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like a threesome. It's terrible.
But you didn't invite them into bed.
Yeah. It's like an unwanted, like a sneaky, like crazy stranger that wants to, watch you. It's awful. It's awful.
It is horrible. It is horrible, and people don't quite grasp that there are two languages happening. One is our conversational language that we use all the time. One is the legal language, and generally the words have two separate meanings. And unfortunately, that's what gets us into trouble all the time. All the time, because we're using words, like when we talk to government, we're using words in a conversational way, not realizing that the government is not alive. It doesn't exist in the corporeal realm. It has no soul. There is no communicating with government. Government is not a man. It's not a woman. It's a thing. So it can only. It's interesting because really, when it looks at you, when government looks at you, it's not looking at you as a live flesh and blood human being. Okay, it's looking at you in what's called a civilly dead person, right?
Like slaves.
Well, yeah, but more like chattel, because a chattel is a property or a thing.
Okay.
So really, the state looks at you the only way it can as a person. A person, of course, being an artificial person, a corporation that basically represents you. And if you think about your body, you've heard Trinity, you've heard the mind, body, and soul, and you've heard all these different things. But if you really think about it, your body is like a compost pile that you keep adding new compost to keep it going. And what is it? It's a vessel. Sort of like an automobile is a vehicle. Well, the body, as referred to in the Bible, is actually a vessel. And what does it carry around? It's carrying around your soul, your brain, basically, your consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so government must, in order to control a free people, government must do what's called make a surety. A surety. If you look up the word straw man, actually, in old Black's Law dictionaries, you'll see that it means a bond or surety. And it basically means that your body is attached to the artificial person or this corporation that's built. Includes your Social Security, your driver's license, and everything else. So really, when you're making a contract to get married, the state considers you to be dead. That's the interesting part about it. Everything the state deals with as far as you as a person is all through your corporation, your straw man, if you will. And you're just the surety, basically, ensuring or the trustee, if you will, of that name. You have the Christian name, which is your first name, and you have the surname, which is your last name. That's the property of the state, that last name. So it's a convoluted subject, but in the end, if you always remember that the only way government can acknowledge you and govern you is if you are dead, literally, you're a corporation or a person. It also kind of shows you that the only way to escape that tyranny is to never ever admit that you're a person or that you're dead. In other words, if you're always alive, then you can never be seen by government, and that would take hours to go into and explain. The point is, when it comes to marriage, you have basically like a mortgage. It's sort of a dead pledge. They call a mortgage a dead pledge, or there's another word for it. So, government literally takes the life out of everything. It's the easiest way to put it. So when you're talking about marriage, you're not talking about a man and a woman. Woman is actually a legal term as well. It's a status, and as is man. But when you're talking about a natural man and a natural woman doing something to pledge their ever-loving love and support, that has nothing to do with it, because government doesn't know love. It doesn't know integrity. It doesn't know anything. It's artificial.
Damn sure doesn't. Yeah. That's the last thing I think of when I think of love as government, please. You know?
So, I mean, we could go down and we can read all of these things, but one of the most important things is the reason that government likes marriage, and the reason that it's going to start pushing gay marriage, in fact, is because, well, gay people are now adopting children. So, why was it between a man and a woman? Well, because the product of the marriage is that child, and that child needs to be taken under the protection of government as soon as possible. When we say protection, it doesn't quite mean exactly what we think it means, right?
So more like the control of government than the protection of.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the control of the estate, if you will.
Yeah.
Versus Roberts, there's no wider area for the exercise of judicial discretion than that of providing for and protecting, quote unquote, the best interests of the child. Most importantly, the court stands in the position of what's called, it's an old sort of Latin doctrine called parens patria, of children, which basically means parent of the state. So if we go down, parens patria, literally parent of the country, refers traditionally to the role of state as sovereign and guardian of persons under legal disability. Pursuant to the parens patria doctrine, the primary control, listen to this, folks, the primary control and custody of infants is with the government, to be delegated to you, the parents. So this is to be delegated. This is the opinion of the court. To be delegated as, of course, to their natural guardians and protectors. In other words, the people who had the baby or the people who adopted the baby, so long as such guardians are suitable persons to exercise it. So in other words, it goes on, quote, in other words, the state is the father and mother of the child, and the natural parents are not entitled to custody except upon the state's beneficent recognition that natural parents presumably will be the best of its citizens, another artificial term, to delegate its custodial power. So as long as the parents obey the law, as long as if they pass a law that says your child must be vaccinated, you obey that law, then you can have custody of your child. But otherwise, the state is the father and mother. But this goes back a very, very long. I mean, this was pre-United States, really. But again, this is the opinion of the courts. That's the problem. It goes on. The law devolves the custody of infant children upon their parents, not so much upon the grounds of a natural right. No, because we're not in the natural law. But because of the interest of the child and the good of the public will as a general rule. So in other words, it's better for the parents if they're good citizens to raise another good citizen. But the second you go against the will of the state, then you're not considered, fit to be a guardian of your own child, and the state has the authority, in its own words, to take your child away. So, I mean, if you were to ask me 3 years ago, I would have said, yeah, marriage is a great thing. You ask me today, I am 110% against the act of marriage because it is not a natural thing. It is completely a contractual relationship where you agree to give your child to the state. In other words, the product of your marriage or, of course, adoption, same thing. That's why they're priming the gay marriage agenda because, again, there's a lot of adoption going on. They want to ensure that those children are under the parents' patria doctrine.
Is this only is this relevant only in the U.S. or in other parts of the world too? Does marriage mean the same thing in other countries, or you've just researched the U.S.?
I've only done U.S., but it's I mean, again, you're talking about a private law society that is part of the International Bar Association. So technically, it's whatever they say. I mean, I think in other nations you do need a license to get married. You do need to be a citizen. You do need to do this. You do need to do that. So,
is it just if the couple is married? I mean, if they have a child and they're not technically married, does that child belong to the state as well?
My friend, actually, I won't say his name, but he has 2 children. Of a marriage that do not have birth certificates, do not have Social Security numbers. They are probably 8 years old and 10 years old, something like that. They are not property of the state. It is a choice that you will do that you don't know you have. Basically, you'll notice. You see, what happens in the hospital is you're going to notice if you have a baby in the hospital, then they are literally not only required, but they get massive incentives to collect your information at birth. They must, under all circumstances, get a name, in other words, a surname, a corporate name for your child. So that's why they're just constantly after you, trying to assign him a birth certificate, assign him a Social Security number, because then he's in the system. So those kids are actually free right now. They're actually free inhabitants.
Those kids, but they didn't get any of that stuff though. So if you're married, let's say if you're not married, but you still have your child in the hospital and they get a birth certificate, then they're automatically going to get a Social Security number, and boom, they're
the only way that they can get a birth certificate is if you if you give them a name. You see, a birth certificate, if you look at your birth certificate sometime, you'll notice that it's printed on a banknote. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's actually a bond. Okay, it's not what we think it is. It's bonding yourself into a corporate structure. The name itself is the corporate structure. Like, so the surname basically is the corporate name. So it's creating an artificial person. It used to be that you went to the church and you got baptized, and the baptismal record was proof of citizens. That's what people really should be doing. Problem is, all the churches have become corporate, so it's sort of a trap in that respect too. So,
like your friend, did they just have their kids at home? I mean, is that how they got?
No, he went to the hospital, or I should say she went to the hospital because she did all the work. I respect that, but he wouldn't. Again, it all revolves around the name. If they cannot get you to tell them the name of the child, then there is no contract that can be made. In other words, there's no certificate that can be produced for a record of birth. If you look at birth in the dictionary, again, it has a totally separate meaning. That's what they do to ships. And in the law of sea, the law of the sea, you're basically when you the birth certificate is almost an exact copy of a certificate of birth for a ship. It's like they call the mother. In fact, they call the mother the informer, not the mother. So same thing with a ship coming in with all the containers and stuff. It's all commerce. It's all commerce. None of it is natural. None of it's under natural law. In other words, it's not needed except for convenience if you want, to get some benefits from the state. So, and unfortunately, that's what people want.
Did they give him a hard time? I mean,
yes.
I'm sure they were like, we're going to call CPS or do something crazy.
Yeah.
Literally.
Because he didn't.
Yeah, they said, well, we haven't decided on the name, so, we can't give you a name. Sorry. And that was it. And, of course, they tried to pester him because it's, I think the hospitals get into some modicum of trouble if they can't rustle it up. And again, it's a for-profit business. They're getting money to get that to collect that information. This is how hospitals make a lot of money. Also, inversely, when they take your child, I don't know if you've heard about the horrors of CPS, Child Protective Services, but they get money, and they get different types of payoffs depending on what kind of child. If it's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child, they get more money.
Yeah.
So, because everybody can go to different countries and adopt, but you notice that you can't adopt. It's very hard to adopt the little white kid. So, yeah, and unfortunately, the reasons for that go much deeper into, which I won't get into, but child ritual sacrifice and all that kind of crap that's going on in this country, rape rooms and.
Oh yeah, we had a show on that. Talk with Kevin Annett. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
We've interviewed him, and we've gotten into that a little bit, so we understand a little bit about that.
Yeah, but it's horrible.
Yeah,
I mean,
terrible.
Researching that stuff is like that's probably the most disturbing stuff.
That and the NK drip, yeah, those two things.
Well, I mean, you think you're kind of awake and you know what's going on in the world, and you start researching that stuff, and you're just like, ugh, I can't even take it. It's like it's so disturbing. You can see why people don't want to talk about it, because it's just so horrible. But but this is pretty bad here too. I had 2 kids in a hospital. And I'm pregnant again, but I'm not going to the hospital this time. And so that's why I was kind of asking you these questions, because I'm going, how do I kind of get out of that? But this one I'm going, I'm doing with a midwife, so I'm not going to go to the hospital because well, first of all, that whole thing in and of itself, like, we were talking during the short interim about the, nutrition and medical complex and things like that. Like that whole thing in itself, the hospital can mess up your child at birth, and then just the going there, but then also just signing the late contracts. So I guess I was just kind of curious, like, how do you sort of get past that? And because when we actually had our kids, we weren't married. So
it's all voluntary. Every single thing you do is voluntary. Again, we go back to the words. The word magic. Word magic. Illicit. The word illicit, for instance, means to use word trickery and magic to gain a political advantage. So what does a police officer do? He tricks you into signing a citation which is actually an illegal summons to appear in court. He elicits, so he uses word magic. In this case, he threatens you, right? So, I mean, basically, you're volunteering every time you sign something with government. You're requesting it, and that's why it's called an application. All right. So now, in my own process, and I'm not giving legal advice here, by the way. I don't practice law. I'm not an attorney. Blah 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 blah.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
Right. My personal path in discovery has been that the only way to truly be free from all that and to go into the sort of de jure form of government, which is the United States of America, minus the Washington D.C. thing, which is like a holding company, like a corporation that has not. It's like the political law versus the natural law that's supported through the Articles of Confederation, basically, and the Declaration of Independence. If you read that, you'll see that it's basically saying natural law is king, whereas the Constitution is completely adverse to natural law. Natural law being do no harm to others or their property, and you got no problem. You live free the rest of your life. Govern yourself, basically. So my personal process, if you will, what I've figured out is that you need to go back to the source. What is the source of any contract? It's your signature on an application. What is an application? It's defined as an applique. In other words, it's something that sticks to you. So you need to nullify the original contract. What creates a contract? You're actually, like you said, you're applying for slavery by applying for citizenship. You're applying for a social security number. You're applying for a birth certificate. You're applying for selective service. You're applying for a driver's license. You need to go back, especially with Social Security, and literally in the code, it actually can. I mean, you can do it with a form. There's a form called. If you want to write this down, you're going to read the form. It's SSA-521. That's the official form to rescind your signature or to withdraw the application. If you withdraw the application, basically that means that the whole thing, the whole artificial construct that is Social Security, it's retroactive. It never even applied to you. So you no longer have that surety or that bondage to the Social Security. At that point, then most of your other contracts, including your driver's license and everything else that you used the Social Security for, will be null and void. That's really how they reel you in, is the Social Security number, because you basically then, from that point on, all your legal contracts and stuff are basically based on Social Security. And Social Security makes you a beneficiary to a trust. That is why you're liable for tax, according to the IRS. You're a taxpayer because you are a latent receiver of a benefit from a mutual trust, basically. Okay, so the whole tax code is basically based on you having a Social Security number and the fact that you're going to collect benefits from Social Security. That's the whole kit and caboodle right there. So once you're out of that, you are no longer a taxpayer. Taxpayer is a legal term used to describe someone who has that tie. So I mean, it's an incredible realization that I mean, truly the only way to be free, which is a loose subject because of course you're dealing with a military occupation basically by this United States. The only way to be free is to end contract. When you go into the legal language again, what is solution? Solution can only be defined one way in the legal language, and that's the end of contract, end or satisfaction of contract. What is honor? Honor is not what it means in the Christian land. It's what it means in the legalese land. It means to pay a debt. See, these guys have no honor because their kind of honor is to put you into debt that's perpetual so that you're always a slave to that debt. So honor is literally paying your debt on time. See, this is how government thinks. What is solution or satisfaction? Again, satisfaction of contract. The only way you can be free is if you're not contracted. That's what citizenship is. That's what marriage is. That's what your birth certificate is. They're all forms of bondage. So, like I said, I'm going to be doing a weekly show on Wednesdays with a guy that basically goes over the remedy. If you actually use, it's hard to explain, but if you use the Bible, actually, because the Bible is, no matter what you believe, no matter what you think of the church, of Christianity, all of that goes by the wayside when you understand one very important thing. The book is the law book that everything is based on. And once you get that under your craw, and you realize that every word in the Bible, and especially I refer to the King James Bible, which is, there was a reason they call it the authorized 1611 version, and there's a reason that the whole language was changed at the same time that Bible was created into a legalese, because it literally is the law of the land. It's a presentment of the natural law, which is the teachings of the character Jesus. Again, you don't have to believe he existed. It doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter. It's a presentation of the natural law. Do no harm, basically. And then the rest of the Bible is basically talking about the church and government as God. And once you get that and you understand that, you see the whole thing. When people create a trust, for instance, they actually submit the Bible as their law. When you go to court, you put your hand on the Bible. Why would you do that if we have a separation of church and state? Yeah. It's because it's the law. I mean, as soon as you get that, everything changes, and you understand that the concept of Christianity has nothing to do with a church. It's actually a way of life. It's a remedy to artificial personhood. It's all throughout the Bible. You shouldn't respect persons, meaning corporations. I mean, it's an incredible understanding. And no belief required. You don't have to, all you have to say is, God is higher than man. Because as long as you don't acknowledge that, and of course they're doing everything in their power to make that a reality in America, that people turn their backs on God, because then the next tier down is man, or government, or church. They are your God. And you go read, I'll give you a few examples. All right? Funny stuff. When you look, and these, it's there for anybody to look. Go to Black's Law, 4th edition, defines evil. Okay? Evil's a biblical term. But remember, the law is based on the canons, or the ecclesiastical. What is evil? Black's Law defines it. It is an evil within rule that either means or end of conspiracy must be evil to frustrate or impede a government function, whether that function is performed under a constitutional or an unconstitutional law. It's evil to go against government law. In other words, whether it's unconstitutional or not. What is hell? Well, when we look up the word hell in the legal dictionary, you're going to find that it's the prison under the chambers of the executure, which was the court. It's not some place down below the ground on fire. It's actually a legal term, as is every word in the Bible. Oh, what a revelation that is. I mean, it's incredible. Every single word. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's absolutely incredible. So, literally, like people in the know, people in trust and estate law, they create a nonprofit corporation and they submit the Bible as their law, and now they're in control. Their nonprofit trust, basically, and again, this is a very elitist stuff that I would never participate in. Their nonprofit trust is now in charge of the corporate state name, the birth certificate, and all that. And they basically, all these IRS forms they fill out, and they get all their money back that they've spent the entire year, as if they are a nonprofit business.
Wow, I mean, this just sounds terrible.
It is.
No, you're like, because it is. I know.
Think about it this way. I just read you the definition of hell.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? What are we all, right? Hell was a debtor's prison. People who didn't pay their debt or honor their debt went into the executor's prison called hell. What are we?
We're in debt.
We're all in hell. We're all in debt.
Yeah.
Think of it that way, and things change in your mind.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because I know, like, there have been laws preventing slaves from getting married to each other, like, and then there's, like, the interracial marriage and miscegnation at Loving versus the state of Virginia, and then gay people now fighting, for their civil rights to get married. And it's like, to me, now that I look back on it, it's like, these people you're asking to be accepted into this popular clique, right, in order to be happy. Why do you think it's not enough for people to just be with one another?
Well,
and in order to go on.
You got to remember that there's a reason why I say let's take the royal family, right? Take the Rothschilds. Everybody knows the Rothschilds interbreed, right? You got to ask the question: why are these people interbreeding? Well, let's take Obama.
Yeah.
Okay, did you know that Obama is actually the first cousin of Anne Boleyn and King John?
I've heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
What that is, his blood type is AB negative, which is about 1% of the entire. It's less than 1% of the entire population. The reason you got to remember this above all else that what we call racism really stems from the fact that blood types don't mix well. Okay, so if you're a negative blood type woman, and you marry a positive blood type man, or vice versa, I think it is, your body will actually fight the blood because it's a foreign blood. It treats it as a foreign enemy to be defeated, and your body will go into overtime to kill that formation of life because it's a foreign blood. This is, you can verify this very simply. So
this is according to their theory, right?
No, this is basic medical 101. It's just not that
well. What do you say? I come from a mixed background, so what do you...
Well, modern, the reason that they interbred so much was because they were keeping the blood either negative or basically negative. The whole royal line is basically a negative blood, and they've got their own diseases that only affect negative bloods. Unfortunately, they're uncovering all the diseases that only affect positive blood, which is about 87% of the entire world's population. You've heard of the concept of depopulation of 90% of the people. Well, all you have to do is wipe out the positive blood types. Okay, that's unfortunately that's a reality. And you can look at patents to show that. But what they've done in modern medical history, now they can suppress the immune system. They suppress the immune system for many things. To give you an example of how similar it is, there's a thing called xenotransplantation, again completely against the Bible, to put animal parts or blood or serum or human parts into your body. So my friend has a pig vein in his arm because they didn't have human veins to put in his arm. So in order to do that, they have to completely suppress your immune system so that your body doesn't fight the foreign object or the foreign life, basically, life form that is completely opposite of what your DNA structure is. So if you lower the immune system, then anybody can have anybody's baby. So just for pure understanding of history, the reason that people segregated and would not allow their children to marry, say, a white marry a black person, or a Jew, they're still in it to this day. A Jew is not supposed to marry anybody but a Jew. And there's a reason, because Jews have a high negative blood type. Okay, the specific Ashkenazi Jew, the white Jew. That.
But really, what happened? What happened? Because I think I'm okay. So I mean, what is like the? I don't have like 9 heads or anything. What is the consequence?
Well, no.
You're saying that if I can
The only thing I'm trying to make you.
No. I'm just at. Perfect.
I was trying to make you understand that it didn't derive from some hate. It didn't derive. It derives actually from a specific lineage, which has to do with blood. The blood type and the blood of the royals is what allows them. Well, they call themselves royals. Is what allows them, their genealogical history, is what allows them to be to pretend to be God, basically on Earth. So that's the most valuable. That's more valuable than gold to these people, is to be able to prove their genealogical bloodline. What's the reason they call it bloodlines? Because it has to do with blood type, not like everybody. A lot of people are related, for instance. That doesn't mean that you're carrying the negative blood of the queen, who's I think O negative, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just trying to give you a little history that it's not all developed in hate. That the reason there was so much segregation, for one thing, there was no travel. I mean, people weren't traveling continentally until, last however many centuries. But before that, I mean, people stayed where they were, and it's you go to Japan, you expect to see Japanese. You go to China, you expect to see Chinese. You go to Korea, you expect to see Korea. There's a reason they don't mix, and it has nothing to do with morals, values, anything. It was literally to protect the blood. That's all I'm trying to get across.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, I guess it's I know a lot of women who had the ROGAM shot during pregnancy. And doesn't it have something to do with that? I think like if she has a certain type of blood type, or her type is different than her baby's.
Yes.
Something like that. It's like, and so then they get this shot. Those shots are very toxic, by the way. A lot of women get this. They have to have them, or else sometimes the babies will spontaneously abort. But then if they don't, they won't be able to carry them to term. But
and that's designed. I can't remember if that's the name of the specific shot, but yeah, it's designed to literally lower the immune system so that your body doesn't reject a foreign body. Basically, it's not the same. It's not the same kind of human that you are, because it has different blood, basically.
Right.
And by the way, this is the reason that everybody's basically got all of these diseases, these modern dementia diseases today, is because in every vaccine, they're growing those cells on animal substrates. In other words, DNA and bovine blood, and they're basically passing that into your system, because they say in the actual vaccine inserts that you can't get all that DNA out, you can't get all that protein out, so your body naturally reacts and has an immune response. Just to give you a good example, 90% positive sterilization of wild horses by simply injecting what's called porcine zona pellucida, which is nothing but the ovary of a pig into a horse. It attacks on the male, it attacks the spermatogenesis, and on the female, it attacks the production of eggs and shrinks the size of the ovaries. Why? Because it's a foreign body, and your body literally creates antibodies that start affecting your own system because they're so similar. Likewise, the reason they have to give that shot to humans in order for them to have a baby is because the body is going to produce an antibody to that blood. It's a different blood than yours. So, I mean, it's a fascinating study. I could send you all the links that I've collected if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and it's really interesting.
That's part of our awakening process, is through vaccines, because of April's son and my cousin and the health industry, basically. So I would like that, actually.
I don't know if you know, but I have a 2.5-hour documentary on vaccines.
I started. I didn't finish it. I'll be honest, but I did start watching.
Yeah, well, it's dry, so I mean, it's just a research.
No.
Is that the pharmacological?
Go ahead.
Is that the pharmacological inquisition?
No, that's Jan Irvin, actually.
Okay.
Mine's called. Mine's free. It's on It's on YouTube. It's called Lethal Injection, the story of vaccination.
No, I didn't. It's not that it was dry that I didn't finish it. It was only because I just couldn't because I do have 2 kids and I'm busy all the time, and so this job is something that I do with my love. So
yeah,
sometimes there's not enough love to go
the
around.
last half hour of that is about the abortion industry and the fact that clearly a moral choice. When you read the fact that the flu vaccines and a lot of the vaccines are grown on human aborted fetal tissue, and that you're injecting that into your body, according to the inserts that are in the vaccines. Of course, they don't say that it's aborted fetal tissue. They call it human diploid cells.
Yes.
But the whole you'll like it as well. I mean, the whole last part is how the black population has been completely, reproductively speaking, has been completely halted by abortion. And of course, the person who created Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, was very clear that was the purpose of Planned Parenthood. And then, of course, the abortion industry is huge. They sell baby parts like they're going out of style. I mean, it's disgusting. It's in makeup. Aborted fetal tissue. They use it for taste tests. Kraft. There are 3 big companies: Kraft, Coca-Cola, and one of the other big companies, Nestle. All went through hell because they got found out that they were using basically aborted fetal tissue as taste enhancers, basically. So I mean, we're living in Soylent Green, basically. I mean. You'll notice that a lot of movies have that theme, actually, where they reproduce, they liquidate people and feed it to other people. That's why actually the Matrix had that in it, but nobody, the recent movie, The Cloud Atlas had that in it. I mean, they're really pushing that as a normal thing. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting with regards to the vaccines and how they have all these, like you were saying, the DNA of other animals and aborted humans as well. It's there's a lot in the anti-vaccine community, or the people who are kind of protesting against it. They do a lot of they mention the aluminum and the mercury, which I'm not saying those are good things, but those other adjuvants, we kind of know how to get rid of them out of the body, and we kind of know how to eliminate them, but when it comes to this foreign DNA, no one really knows. Like, and it's almost, I mean, as you were saying, like it says on there that it's impossible to eliminate.
No.
So we don't really know how to do it, and it's hard if you're trying to recover from a vaccine injury, if that's the problem. To try and get that out. I mean, it's just, one of our really good friends, she went down at 13 after she had the Gardasil vaccine, and that's what she talks about as well, is that, they don't know what to do about the recombinant DNA. They can get the aluminum out, they can get the other things out, but it's just like they don't know how to get that stuff out. It's just
those adjuvants, one of the ones that I cover in my documentary, I think is the most important one, it's called squalene. And squalene, you produce it naturally in your body, but they derive it, according to the government website, they derive it from sharks. Well, Gary Matsumoto wrote a book, I can't remember the name of it. He said it's the most insidious chemical weapon ever devised because literally you're injecting, again, a foreign squalene into your body. It's so similar to your own, and yet it's a foreign object, so your body creates antibodies to attack the foreign squalene. Well, guess what? Squalene, the squalene that you produce, is necessary for joint health, and a host of other. It's almost like an oil for your body, almost it's like a lubrication. So your body literally starts attacking your own squalene production, and next thing you know, your body is going through hell. It's going through lupus. It's going through multiple sclerosis, arthritis, everything.
Yeah. Fibromyalgia probably too, right?
Well, there's a whole list, and guess what they called it? Gulf War Syndrome. So that squalene is in all of your flu vaccines, and the problem is, see, these things don't affect you right away. They affect you over a long period of time. It's what they call a slow kill, or other. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible, and it's very profitable.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, when my son regressed from vaccines, I mean, he continued to get worse over time. It was like, we could see after, he was shot with the MMR vaccine and the chickenpox, he started to regress, and then just over the years, he regressed a little bit more and a little bit more. And so it was, which is hard to see when, it's hard to have your child be so sick. And all those things that you're describing, like the fibromyalgia and the immune system problems, every child with autism, has those issues. They think they label it as this, thing because, kids are flapping their arms so they can't speak. But they have all those issues, I promise you. Every single one of them has gut disease of some sort. Mm-hmm. They have an immune system problem. They have fibromyalgia because that's one of the reasons they are flapping all the time is because their bodies hurt. They hurt from head to toe. And, it's very apparent, now that I know but I can see it. Those types of behaviors are, a lot of times, they're just pain management. So it's really weird, and then you were talking about developing the antibodies. The other thing that I think is probably contributing to all these allergies is because if you think about all the things that they put in there, sometimes they cultivate them from eggs. Well, guess what? These kids, you inject somebody with something cultivated from an egg, they're going to be allergic to eggs. You use peanut oil on the syringe. Guess what? They're going to be allergic to peanuts. And we have epidemic peanut allergy. Kids you can't even take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to school.
Oh, it's true. That's exactly what's happening. It's your body attacking a foreign entity. See, what's happening is, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's really psychopathic because you're completely avoiding the body's natural ability to fight off any type of foreign substance or infection, and you're putting an injection right into the bloodstream. Basically, you're bypassing the body's, like the digestive system, for instance. You're bypassing it, the lungs. What's really horrible, and the reason I haven't made a second documentary is because I found out about what's called prions, which are what actually causes mad cow disease. And I'm convinced at this point, after patent after patent after patent, this is what causes every dementia. It's behind 50% of cancers, according to patents. Prions are literally being, as I said, xenotransplanted or xenografted through injection. That you can't get rid of the DNA. So if you grow something on a bovine, you're passing mad cow disease or its equivalent, which is called spongiform encephalopathy, transmissive spongiform encephalopathy. I'm telling you, it's the cause of Alzheimer's, ALS, all dementias. See, the problem is people don't get an autopsy, because why would you get an autopsy? But if you ask a doctor what causes Alzheimer's,
he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. He says, I'll treat the symptoms. What causes ALS? Oh, I don't know. Probably this. We're just treating the symptoms. Well, what causes 50 other dementia disease? Oh, we don't know. What? What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah, what causes cancer? They don't know. They don't know crap.
Yeah, if you do an autopsy, on his Alzheimer's patient, you'll find holes in the brain, because that's what prions do. They attach to other proteins, and they malform the protein structure in the brain, which is exactly what mad cow disease. On a cancer cell or a normal cell, to turn it cancerous, these little prions are attaching, and they're malforming the structure that protects the cell from I can't remember what it is that actually makes cancer, some chemical or something. There's actually a protective layer of protein, and these are proteins basically that aren't alive. They're practically indestructible. They can lay dormant for 50 years at least, maybe 70. And we're injecting this into every single kid and adult through vaccination. They might lay dormant, or they might instantly attack. They might instantly attack and cause something like autism. See, we are literally in the midst of, and again, I'll go back to the Bible. The Bible says, do not mix species. Do not mix species. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We've turned medicine into cannibalism. We're not eating. We're injecting the body parts of other animals and human aborted fetal tissue into our body. And it's caused the greatest medical crap storm in history. And that's my conclusion after years and years of research.
Go ahead, oh.
Yeah, and it's so a shame that people have been so indoctrinated to deify doctors.
Doctors indoctrinate themselves.
Yeah.
That too, but I think there are people that are like, they've been so indoctrinated to look up to people in academia as if they are gods, and anybody else, even if they have personal experience, is not relevant just because they don't have that degree, or that status symbol. But yet these people don't know they don't know the origins. They're just like, treating the symptoms, like you said. I'm sorry, go on, Clint.
That's part of what's called communitarianism. You guys should really. That's one of the most important things that I'm discovering. Part of communitarianism, that's kind of like combining all the isms together: communism, fascism, socialism, corporatism. One of those is credentialism is one of the most important things because it creates a status, and you look at the badge and you say, oh well, he must know what he's doing. So credentialism is one of the main ways of taking over a society. Because, I'm not credentialed, so why would you listen to me? I've only done 6-7 years of vaccine research. Why would you listen to me? I mean, why? Right? I'm not credentialed. I'm trying to warn people of the plague of the 21st century. That's provable. Absolutely. I've proved it in my research. Yet I'm not credentialed, so what do I know? I'm not going to get a Peabody Award for telling you guys this today.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. And then it's funny how well that works for people because I saw recently this woman that I know, and she actually recovered her son from autism, and this guy made a video debunking what she had to say, and I'm going, how do you know? You weren't there. She actually did it. I know for a fact. And but people are name calling at her and name calling her at the person who posted the video, and they're saying that that they're liars and calling them names like asshat and asshole and all this kind of stuff, and really like just vicious attacks on people who. And I'm going, what? And the guy who made the video quote debunking said that because there's no cure for autism. But I'm like, well, why would I listen to you who says that there's no cure just because you have a degree versus this woman who actually cured her son? It's like I talked to her because she did it. It's like but it's just that they're so into it and
May I make a suggestion for someone to interview?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you know who Dr. Sherry Edwards is?
No.
She is doing the research with sound and frequency and is actually, I can't say the word heal because that would be illegal, but she is with frequencies sort of similar to Royal Rife and Tesla and all those folks. She's actually been able to do beautiful, beautiful things with the most serious of illnesses. I'll send you her contact if you want. She's fantastic interview, and she you can actually see what she's doing. It's really incredible. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's interesting. And if you say that she's using frequency technology to heal. But then, a lot of these frequencies, I think we talked about this a little bit last time we had you on, with the Wi-Fi and stuff, these things are causing a lot of problems to us. So she's saying she's actually found a way to make it in a positive direction. Or
she calls it bioacoustics. I'll send you... Well, her website is soundhealthoptions.com, and I'll send that to you right now. But
okay.
She teaches other people how to do what she's doing and offers the software for free because they want clinical research. So she'll send you the stuff. You can try it out, imprint your voice. It's interesting when you hear her story. It's the most fascinating thing you'll ever hear because she can actually hear illness. She has a special hearing that she can actually hear things in the voice that tells you what's wrong with you. It's absolutely incredible, and she's turned that into a science that's apparently working. And there's a specific name for that condition where you hear things other people can't. I don't know what it is, but she actually went with it. And most incredible story I've ever heard. I'd like to support her if I had money. And I'd like to go up there and actually take some of her classes. She's in Ohio. But definitely look her up, ask her if she'll do an interview. I just interviewed her like 3 weeks ago. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we're totally open to stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
great.
really interesting. And so, but what's funny, what you're talking about this credentialism thing, just going back to that a little bit, is that what about people who, like, say, are credentialed, like Dr. Suzanne Humphreys or some of these people who are doctors and then they've done the vaccine research, but people still don't believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, it's like you're fighting with somebody, you give them like, oh, well, I have doctors to back me up. Oh, they're not good enough, or they're fringe doctors, or they're.
I think the powers that be actually like that because it creates what's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is basically the most important tool that you have in advertising because. It's basically a battle of the ego over logic and reason. It's for instance, a nurse who still injects child, knowing knowing that it's going to probably harm that child, is suffering from cognitive dissonance because she knows, or she has to believe that it's okay to do what she's doing because it's her job and she's vested in it. So I think they actually like it when certain doctors come out and say, oh my God, I've seen it, because it creates sort of a fringe element. It adds to the cognitive dissonance. And, somehow that makes the desire for some people to get a vaccine even stronger because they want to disprove, through their ego, they want to disprove the facts.
Good luck
Oh, yeah.
with that.
Remember that lady that came after April? There was this lady that came after and commented on her page one time. She's like, yeah, I'm going to get double vaccinated. And we're like, great, go for it, do it, But I remember that. I was like, we're not, it's like they're just people, we've been, April and I have been discussing this lately, that are just more interested in being right than interested in the truth or interested in even what is good for them or what is the best for them, because they can't let their ego go or they don't want to admit that they've been duped, and that, I guess that's their ego again, right? Like, Yeah,
it's a horrible realization, and you realize it more and more the more you talk to strangers and the more you listen. Like, I like to eavesdrop, I'll admit it. I like to eavesdrop if I'm in a restaurant or sitting somewhere and I'll just hear a conversation, and I'm amazed at the total ego that people operate by. I mean, I feel like after learning all this stuff, I feel like I've kind of lost my any ego. I mean, it's difficult to have an ego death. Some people even say it takes mushrooms, but
Yeah.
I at this point it's just like, oh man, you just want to you want to teach, but you don't want to come off as being, I don't know,
being pushy or being. But yeah, and I guess even though I think when you first start to find out this information, you want to tell people and you want to shout it from the mountaintops because you want to save the world, and you realize that not everybody really wants to be saved. They don't want, they're not open. They don't want to hear what you have to say, or.
And that's why I tell people like you all the time, because this is what I figured out. If you're out there as part of the quote unquote truth movement, if you're thinking that you're going to save the entire planet or save all the sheep, you're barking up the wrong tree. The only revolution that's going to happen is the revolution of the individual mind. There's not some collective consciousness that's just going to wake up, because if there is a collective consciousness, we're basically chemically lobotomized at this point. And I can read you quotes that they were talking about vaccinating out empathy, 100 years ago. I mean, that's been the plan all along. So you must appeal to a individual when you're talking to people. I mean, I try to do that on my radio show. Is really, and if someone emails me, I'll take the time to email them back. I'll call them, whatever, because the only way you're really ever going to have success is one person at a time. I hate to say that because we're all set up in this way that we think we're reaching all these people, but people have been in the doing this for a long time. They realize the same thing, that it's an individual thing. You have to show true intent, love, in order to really get through to people, unfortunately, and that's tough to do in an internet radio situation,
But do you think because of the internet that there is a broader awakening of consciousness because we're able to get information out to people from all over the world and in the form of videos and articles and stuff? Because we didn't have that before. So that's the thing
that's true, but there's way more misinformation. Some of it is honest misinformation. In other words, people that just don't see the bigger picture yet. I include myself in that. I go back and read some of my original blog entries from 3-4 years ago. I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? And I'll make that statement now. In 3 years, I'm going to know an entirely new construct of what I already know, and I might be wrong about things, and that's okay. The problem is we spread a lot of different disinformation. Then there are the professional trolls out there. They're the ones that the CIA advertise for on Facebook. Right? So there's more disinformation. Unfortunately, there's a very few voices I think that are sincere. I'm completely never made a cent from anything I've ever done. I've taken some donations, but all my movies are free. Everything's free. So I don't. But
if you did, is that a bad thing? If you did, you know what I mean? Because you have to live. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
and it's just what I decided to do, because if I have no sponsors, nothing supporting me that can tell me, well, I'd like you to, I was supposed to sign a contract with my radio station, and I ignored the contract. I don't want to be under contract. I don't want sponsors. I don't want anybody telling me what I can or can't say.
Yeah.
And that, to me, spells that everything I do should be, put out there. The cure for cancer should be put out there. It shouldn't be patented and kept to a single company. The solution to free energy. If you've got it, put it out there, for God's sake. Don't patent it to get killed.
I was talking, exactly. I was talking to somebody yesterday at a party that, if anybody has the knowledge of how to put it on the internet and give it to the people so the people can figure it out. There's no way, if it's out there, the person that patents it, they're done, and wants to take credit for it, it's over.
Yeah, the interesting thing about patents is that really all it protects is mass production. If you find something that you want to build and you think you can build, then you can build anything that's patented for yourself. But as soon as you try to sell it, then you're breaking the patent law. Everyone, technically, if there was some breakthrough thing, everybody that could build it for themselves. As long as they never sell it or do anything or try to copy it or produce it, they're not breaking any law. They haven't broken any patent laws. And that's a very important concept, because there are things out there that we could vastly improve our lives with if we just, let's face it, we've been trained to be phone operators and bank tellers instead of scientists and,
A nation of workers, not thinkers, right?
Yeah. And even the scientists haven't been trained to be scientists. They don't.
They're workers. They don't critically think. They just follow directions and protocol and
compartmentalization. That's really.
Yeah. Did you hear about this guy named I think his name is Schoen. Have you heard of him? I just came across this guy. He was really popular in physics, and he supposedly, he was making all of these breakthroughs on nanotechnology and writing all these papers, and they were peer-reviewed, and, he had won like 3 or 4, maybe maybe, I don't know, a few, I'll just say a few, like, prestigious physics awards, and then they found out, like, he lied. And it was all just, like, it was all just blown to bits, and this whole, like, concept of, like, scientists are very honest, and, you know, they're good people, or they're really smart, but the fact is he just basically wrote a bunch of crap papers, and it was kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes. I think a lot of people didn't want to admit that they'd been, you know, bamboozled until it really, you know, just the stuff hit the fan and they couldn't deny it anymore. But, you know, it's very interesting.
I wrote to the Nobel Prize Committee and I said, hey, here's proof that Al Gore lied. It was Al Gore and Obama. I said, so can you take back the award? No, we don't take back awards. Sorry, go away. It's not how.
They responded to you, or did they respond to you, or?
He said there's no precedent to where awards have been ever taken back. So this guy, they won't take his awards back. In other words, they'll keep them there.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
There's no honor. Well, not according to them.
No, but you know, it's sad because Alfred Nobel would be turning in his grave right now because that's, you know, his intentions have been totally, you know, misused for what he really wanted it for, you know?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, you guys, this has been really, really fun and a really, really good interview, but we are just about out of time here. So, Clint, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to us. We really enjoy having you, and you're certainly welcome back anytime. So before we let you go, remind everybody where they can find you and find your work.
realityblogger.wordpress.com. Long one. Blogger has one G. TheCorporationNation.com has majority of my movies on it, and then I am on Republic Broadcasting Network, which is RBN, republicbroadcasting.org, Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 Pacific.
Well, there you have it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending the evening with us. We will take a short break, and when we get back, Christine and I will close out the show. But we thank Clint Richardson, as always. He's a great guest, and enjoy the rest of your evening, sir.
All right, take care, guys.
Okay, bye, Clint.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Bayer Pharmaceuticals has a new cancer drug called Nexivar, which is effective in cases of late-stage kidney and liver cancers. In the U.S., if you need to take Nexivar for a year, it'll cost you about $96,000. So not only would you be suffering from a terrible disease, you'd also need 2 jobs at America's per capita income just to cover the cost of the drug you need to save your life. That's bad enough. In India, a year's worth of Nexivar will cost you about $69,000, which means you'd need about 45 jobs at India's per capita income. That's obviously unattainable. Bayer's CEO, Maureen Deckers, said recently, hey, in the U.S., you can get the drug for like $100 with most insurance copays. And as for how expensive it is in India, he had this to say. We did not develop this medicine for Indians. We developed it for Western patients who can afford it. Got that? He was very clear that the drug was developed to make a profit from people with money who have cancer, not people with no money who have cancer. That is American corporate greed speaking in plain English. Now, since many people in India could benefit from the drug, a company there is making a knockoff of it at a 97% discount. And of course, Bayer, being a corporation with the mentality of having profits be the most important thing, is all, that's theft. You can't make drugs like ours and profit from it. The whole American pharmaceutical industry is actually up in arms about it, saying things like, if India keeps behaving like this, we're going to cut them off from all of our drugs. So maddening. I mean, I get that it costs a ridiculous amount of money to make these drugs, and that companies need to recoup the development costs. But we're talking about making things that save lives from cancer here, not making shiny new iPhones. It shouldn't cost that much to make the drugs in the first place, and it certainly shouldn't cost that much to take them. Money should be taken out of the equation in general when it comes to saving lives. But nope. Here in the U.S., it always comes down to money. Only in America would a CEO say with a straight face that his cancer medication was only for rich people. The real cancer in this story is the corporate greed that's eating away at our morality.
For more news, visit pigminenews.com.
This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.TV.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening. Hey, Christine.
Hello, April. Bonjour.
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 You know it's funny. We're back, and I was just thinking, because we brought Clint back, because the first time we had him on, we couldn't get to all of our questions, and I think yet again we only got to about half the questions.
I know. I hate when that happens. What?
But it's just, I think it's Clint. I think he just has so much to say, and he's really interesting, though. It's not, he.
Oh yeah, it's
let him talk. It's just that.
Oh, it's great information. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, dang, we thought we got him, but we don't. We need more. We need more.
So we got to bring Clint back, and
we'll just do a week. We'll do a month of Clint Richardson. That's what we'll have to do.
We'll do
a Clint Richardson special. That's what we'll have to do.
We will. We'll have to do just all Clint, all day, all night, and then just keep him on. See how long we can keep him talking before he runs out of things to say. But he's really well researched, and I've said this many times because I really encourage people to go look at his blog, realityblogger. Is it WordPress.com? I'm going to look it up really quick. Yeah, realityblogger.wordpress.com, and also the Corporation Nation, because he's a really good writer. I like his writing. He wrote, I wanted to talk about this, but we didn't have time, but he wrote an article about George Carlin that I thought was really interesting, and he talked about his work and him as an artist and as a comedian, and he says, the really good comedians aren't funny. They tell you the truth. And I think George Carlin is pretty funny. But I kind of know what he means is basically like there's an uncomfortableness about it. There's almost a way that you laugh because
it's an uncomfortable laughter that they're able to provoke out of somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
You're uncomfortable with it because he's telling you the truth, and it's an uncomfortable truth, and you're like, whoa, that's for real, but you laugh because, it sort of gives you that uneasy
feeling. You're like,
Right, and when I read that article, and he wrote that about a month ago or so, I sent him a Skype message, and I said, this is really good, and we, chatted about it a little bit, and I said, I also feel that Louis C.K. would fall under that category. And we talk about the C.K. all the time because, he's one of our favorites. And he doesn't get political, but he talks about, the truth. He tells the truth about things. And it's really interesting. And, Clint also worked in Hollywood, so he knows the Hollywood tricks that they use to make you think things are funny sometimes when they're not. Mm-hmm. They use soundtracks and they use laugh tracks.
Oh, I hate those.
Well, the shows that do studio audiences hire the audiences and then they tell them what to laugh.
Oh yeah, well I've been a part of those audiences. That's how we would raise money for our shows in school. We would go and watch, and so it was awful. It was boring as hell. But I remember, they have the applause and we have to clap, or it was awful.
Yeah, most of those shows they do that, and then the people, the talk shows for sure, because it's really hard. I mean, they do a show every single day, and it's hard to fill the seats with people because sometimes tourists will want to go and just check it out.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. I want to add to that. Yeah, because that's how we would go in during the fall. Because I went to school in Hollywood, so that's how they would, they would get us, and they would pay us like $5 a head per hour. So we get like 30 kids to go. So what is 3 times 150 an hour? Plus, then if we were there for like 3 hours, that's like, $450 toward any project. That's how we would raise money. We would go to these shows for bands, or either for any productions that we were doing, like performing arts productions and stuff. And the tourists would go in the summer, because they were easy. Because everybody from outside of town would like to go to a live taping of a show, so it's easier. But during the fall, when tourism wasn't as prevalent, they'd have us do that. That's how we'd raise our. So I'm sorry, I just want to. I can attest. Basically, I'm saying I can attest to that because I was a part of that and I remember that.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah. No. And when I first moved to LA, that was what I did. I think it was you that told me go down to Central Casting, and it's like temp work, but it's easy money. I mean, it's like it's no, I didn't have a problem with it. I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
It was, you went down to Central Casting. They take your picture and you sign up, and and you call for a job the day before. And that's. But anyway, they would do these shows sometimes. You would have to go in, and I think I was a regular on The Other Half, which was an old talk show with Danny Bonaducci. It was like really, really dumb, but anyway, whatever. But I mean, they tell you when to laugh. The whole thing is getting back to what Clint was talking about in his essay was how, some of these things aren't necessarily funny because they are true and they are serious, but people would laugh either because they were uncomfortable or because they were told to. Because if you're on the Jay Leno show, you're on the Tonight Show or something like that, most of the people in the audience are paid to be there. Yeah. And shows like that, which are pretty popular, can get enough people in there for free, which are tourists. But the ones that they'll show you on camera are usually paid. Because then they want you to dress a certain way, and you have to have, you have to look pretty clean cut to be on the shows and stuff like that. And so those are usually the people that are paid. But then they tell you when to laugh, and they, so it's not real. Nothing about Hollywood is real. It's all a farce, But and he worked there, and so he saw it firsthand, and we screwed around there a little bit, so we saw it firsthand too. But anyway, I guess during the break, I played a little bit this excerpt from this stand-up comedian Doug Stanhope. Are you familiar with Doug Stanhope?
I'm familiar with him. I don't think I've listened to his stand-up, but I've heard you talk about him.
Yeah, Doug Stanhope does this bit about marriage, and I thought it was really funny, and it was very it fit what we were talking about earlier with Clint when we were talking about marriage and the institution of marriage and how it's basically, this whole government intervention where they're like in on your marriage. I thought it was really funny when you said it's like a menage a trois.
It is, though. I was thinking about that. I was like, when he was talking, I was like, ew.
Yeah,
I'm like picturing me about to make love with my husband and the government's looking in the window. Don't forget about me. Fucking NSA Big Brother, that's what I'm like.
Oh my God, little voyeur.
Yeah, that's what I'm, anyway.
Right, and then but Doug Stanhope, what he says in the piece, he's like, at what point did people, decide that they wanted to be together and they had this really beautiful relationship and they wanted to spend the rest of their lives with each other, and they're like, we can't just keep this to ourselves. We got to get the government in on this. When you think of it that way, it's like, that's really weird. Like, how did people decide to do that? And so this whole gay marriage thing where they're fighting for the rights to have a legal marriage, I kind of smelled that out as a farce right away. I was like,
Well, I would say though, for gay people, I want to say this too, that when you have marriage rights, God forbid, say one of the people in the relationship gets into an accident, because I've known a couple people that this has happened to, or one is sick, right? And then the family doesn't approve of them being gay. Well, they're not allowed, because they're not married or there's no jurisdiction involved. They're not allowed. I'm not jurisdiction. Oh God, there's no laws involved, I guess. That would give the partner rights to see his or her, fiance or lover, right? So that's important. That's important. You know what I mean? So in that instance, the family would take over and they won't give them any rights, and that kind of sucks.
Well, that's true of a couple that's heterosexual and not married as well. So
I'm saying for the gay rights, a lot of gays are fighting for that too. Because of.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go on. You were talking about.
Well, I'm just saying that I actually know people who in a heterosexual relationship where that kind of scenario took place. So
wait, because were they married? They weren't married.
They weren't married, but they had been together for a long time.
Gotcha.
They had lived together. They basically had a domestic partnership, And so it really, it could just be if the parents are just assholes, or they're just not approving of the relationship. And maybe it's not that they're assholes. Maybe they have a reason not to not approve of the relationship. All kinds of things that go into it. But the point is that the government, I didn't even ask him about taxes because that whole shim-sham on the wham-wham is such a big farce because we pay into income tax. This whole idea to get married in order to get a tax break is just absurd because I liked how Doug Stanhope says, if you want tax breaks, you should just incorporate, because basically if the government and everybody involved should see you as a person no matter what. And that was the point that he was trying to make. And I guess I brought this up because we were talking about comedians. And I would say that he falls under that category of one of these comedians that borders on not being funny because he's like, he tells the truth and, or as best as he can and as best as he understands. And sometimes he's, kind of sweaty and drunken and gets out and he kind of is off-putting. But he sort of tells you the truth. And then there's other times where I've seen him and he gets very introspective and he's very sincere and he touches and it's sort of moving, But I can see where that not funny kind of thing may come into place for somebody like that who's really, really smart and doesn't and just sort of speaks the truth because, I don't know, the whole idea of getting married in order to have the government acknowledge your relationship, it's like, again, appealing to that false sense of authority of something that doesn't even really exist.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing that he was saying? Oh, I forget. So what were you saying?
I forgot too.
Clint. Clint, why are you leaving us speechless?
Well, no, I see what you're saying. You're saying, because we're going back to the gay thing, I'm saying, I've talked to some people and it made me think about, oh, well, that sucks. If your lover gets in an accident, there's no law saying that you're together, so therefore the family, but you're saying that the heterosexuals done the same thing. But then, but basically what you're just trying to say is this whole appeal to authority that gay people, that everybody is basically appealing to a higher power to ask them how to live their life, basically.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. And then, we also talked with him a little about and I think that's how we ended up not getting to all our questions because we had so much to say about the credentialism thing. Remember, he gave us that word, credentialism.
I know. I think a new word. I'm excited. I'm going to throw that up. I've been using that the past week.
Yeah.
The credentialist attitude.
Yeah, that guy's got a good vocabulary.
We need to do a show on that because that gets really, really annoying, this whole notion, because somebody, has spent a lot of time in college, they therefore think that they're better than you, to put it mildly, or to put it bluntly. They're not going to say I'm better than you, but, I can understand if you've gone to school for a certain amount of time and you spent energy and time and focus and this, that people like to pull this card of as, I have a PhD and I have a master's, or I went to college and you didn't, therefore I'm better than you. And basically they're not going to say that I'm better than you, but they're not going to give you the respect, basically, that you should get. And, there's somebody, and I was saying, you could, I respect the fact that, if you go to college and, you have a specialty in some sort of area in life, and you've been putting focus and research and experience towards that for a certain amount of years. But yet, if you have somebody that's been doing the same thing for the same amount of years, maybe even more, but they don't have credentials to flash in front of you, then that person is totally ruled out, or they're not even given a voice. It's just ridiculous.
I know, and the funny thing is, it's almost like the credential itself sort of, once people get that, then they stop learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost, I'm not
true.
Generalizing,
yeah.
Because, we don't like to do that either and say that applies to everyone, but, because there's always exceptions, but it does seem like then they stop researching, they stop doing the read, because they just know it all already.
Yeah,
yeah. Even though, in science itself, they'll tell you that they change their understanding over and over and over again. They constantly are relearning it, or learning that something that they thought was one way isn't.
Yeah.
They learn. They think the world is flat, and then they realize it's round, or what I mean, and all kinds of things. It happens all the time, and yet they will, because of their credential, they close their mind off to any type of outside work, where people who have researched stuff really have researched it far more than they have, with all their degrees.
Yeah.
So it's really, really weird. So,
but also, too, a lot of times when you get a degree, you're kind of limited to amount of, because you have, of how much you can research, too, because I think when you apply for your dissertation, you have to have it approved by certain people, So you're also too limiting yourself as to what you can do, because you're not, you're waiting for approval from a group of people to tell you what you can and cannot do or publish or write about,
Right. And so Clint is going to have to come back because we have more to ask him, and he is a good guest and really interesting writer. So we thank Clint Richardson for being on the show. We are out of time, so we thank all our listeners for staying with us, and really appreciate you hanging in there with us. Until next time, peace, truth, and love.
Peace, truth, love, guys. Bye-bye.
Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. But seeing right now, within the last months, how the German and American media tries to bring war to the people in Europe, to bring war to Russia. This is a point of no return, and I'm going to stand up and say it is not right what I have done in the past, to manipulate people, to make propaganda against Russia, and it is not right what my colleagues do and have done in the past, because they are bribed to betray the people, not only in Germany, all over Europe. The reason writing this book was that I am very fearful of a new war in Europe, and I don't like to have this situation again, because war is never coming from itself. There is always people behind it to push for war, and this is not only politicians, this is journalists too. And I just have written in the book how we have betrayed in the past our readers, just to push for war, and because I don't want this anymore. I'm fed up with this propaganda. We live in a banana republic and not in a democratic country where we have press freedom, where we have human rights. If you see the German media, especially my colleagues who day by day write against the Russians, who are in transatlantic organizations and who are supported by the United States to do so, well, people like me, I became an honorary citizen of the state of Oklahoma in the United States. Just why? Just because I write pro-American. I wrote pro-American. I was supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, by the CIA. Why? Because I should be pro-American. I'm fed up with it. I don't want to do it anymore.